For decades, Sir Cliff Richard stood as one of Britain's most enduring musical legends. A man whose career spanned more than 60 years, earning him the nickname the Peter Pan of pop. With over 250 million records sold around the world, his name was practically woven into the fabric of British culture. Then, without warning, the music stopped. One of the most familiar voices in British pop simply vanished from the spotlight. No new albums, no tours, no Christmas specials for an entertainer who had been on television and stage since the 1950 seconds. The silence was deafening. Those who had worked closely with him said it was like someone had flipped a switch. After decades of tireless work and constant visibility, Cliff Richard disappeared not because he wanted to retire, but because his world was about to be turned upside down. What forced one of the most beloved figures in British music into isolation was not a creative choice. It was a devastating chain of events involving betrayal, a flawed legal system, and the kind of public humiliation that would test even the strongest of souls. Before diving into that nightmare, it's important to understand why his disappearance sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. Cliff Richard wasn't just a pop star. He was a national institution. His first hit, Move It, released in 1958, is often hailed as Britain's very first true rock and roll song. Over the decades that followed, he achieved something no other artist had done, charting hits in 6 consecutive decades. By the numbers, his record is extraordinary. Over 130 singles, albums, and EPs reached the UK top 20, placing him just behind Elvis Presley and the Beatles on the all-time British singles chart. But Cliff's success wasn't only about the music. As one record executive once said, Cliff Richard was part of the national soundtrack like the Royal Family, Christmas Pudding, and Wimbledon. His songs, television, appearances, and annual holiday specials had become a fixture of British life. So when he suddenly withdrew from public view, no albums, no tours, no appearances. The silence wasn't just unusual, it was shocking. The man who had released at least one album nearly every year since 1959 had gone completely quiet. Fans wondered what could possibly drive such a resilient performer away from everything he loved. The answer began with a single day in August 2014, a day that changed everything. On the 14th of August 2014, while vacationing at his home in Portugal, Cliff Richard received news that felt like a nightmare. His home in Berkshire was being raided by police over an allegation of sexual assault dating back to 1985, an accusation he completely denied. What made this raid unlike any other was not just its existence, but the way it was handled. The BBC had been tipped off in advance and sent a helicopter to film the raid live from above, broadcasting the search of his private home to millions around the world, even before he had been interviewed or charged with anything. His name and image were being shown in connection with a crime. Friends say that he first learned of the raid not from the police but from people calling to tell him they were watching it live on television. It felt like a public execution. One close associate said he hadn't even been given a chance to defend himself. The stress was overwhelming. Those close to him recalled uncontrollable shaking, sleepless nights, and rapid weight loss. For a man who had kept a strict fitness routine into his 70 seconds, the change was alarming. It wasn't the allegation itself. A member of his team later said it was the betrayal, the feeling that both the police and the media had turned on him without cause. Cliff Richard disappeared from public life not to rest but to survive, while the public saw only his absence. Behind the scenes, Cliff was fighting for his life. Friends later revealed that the stress nearly killed him. He lost more than 28 lobes in just a few weeks and developed shingles, a painful illness that can be dangerous for someone in their 70 seconds. His doctors feared that the anxiety could trigger a stroke or heart attack. Mentally, the toll was just as heavy. Those closest to him say he suffered symptoms similar to post-traumatic stress disorder, nightmares, confusion, and moments of complete disorientation. He would wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning drenched in sweat, not knowing where he was. One friend shared, it was heartbreaking. This was a man who had been flawless on stage for decades, suddenly unable to function normally. The investigation dragged on for 2 years with no charges ever filed, prolonging his suffering. To avoid harassment, he moved between properties, becoming, as one security consultant put it, a prisoner in his own life. The combination of age, stress, and public scrutiny was taking a dangerous toll. "The real miracle," said one physician, "is that he survived it all." Beyond the emotional trauma, the ordeal brought devastating financial consequences. Legal fees, lost projects, and career damage added up to more than $10 million in losses. His legal defense alone reportedly cost $3 million. As he fought on multiple fronts, defending himself against false allegations and suing both the BBC and South Yorkshire Police for their mishandling of the case. He also had to cancel an album release, postpone his autobiography, and back out of major concerts and TV appearances, costing him another to $5 million in lost income. Even his real estate suffered. His Berkshire home, once a symbol of success, became impossible to sell after being shown on national television during the raid. He eventually sold it for nearly $800,000 below its market value for a man in his 70s. These weren't just temporary setbacks. They threatened his long-term security. As one advisor put it, he had to sell investments and redirect funds just to fight battles he should never have faced. In June 2016, after almost 2 years, the Crown Prosecution Service announced that no charges would be brought due to insufficient evidence. Cliff Richard was officially cleared, but vindication didn't mean peace. His reputation had already been bruised, and some people would always remember the headlines more than the truth. Determined to fight back, he sued both the BBC and South Yorkshire Police, accusing them of violating his privacy and sensationalizing the story. In July 2018, he finally won. The court ruled that his privacy had been infringed in a serious and sensationalist way, awarding him $2 million in damages and legal costs. But even victory came at a cost. He had to relive the entire trauma, said one person close to him. Every interview, every deposition reopened the wound, and by then nearly 4 years of his career were gone. Precious time he could never recover. Fans noticed something different. The energy was still there, the voice still clear, but the man behind it had changed. He was more guarded, said a concert promoter. Still kind, still professional, but you could see he was protecting himself. His touring schedule shrank. His media appearances became selective. Every project was chosen carefully, not for publicity, but for peace of mind. In 2018, he released his autobiography, The Dreamer, using his own words to tell the truth. He also became a vocal advocate for privacy reform, speaking out about how easily reputations can be destroyed when media and law enforcement cross ethical lines. He didn't just move on, said a journalist who interviewed him after his return. He turned pain into purpose. As Cliff slowly re-entered public life, a new priority emerged, protecting his legacy. After seeing how quickly 60 years of achievement could be overshadowed by false accusations, he dedicated himself to preserving his work and story for future generations. He began overseeing remastered releases of his classic recordings, curating special collections, and ensuring that his decades of music were properly archived. He also doubled down on his charitable efforts, from his tennis foundation to the Christian organizations he'd long supported. He used to take his career year by year, one friend explained. Now he thinks in terms of history, how he'll be remembered. Rather than chasing constant exposure, Cliff now focuses on quality over quantity. Every performance, every album, every appearance is deliberate, a reflection of the legacy he wants to leave behind. In the end, Cliff Richard's disappearance wasn't a retreat born of weakness, it was an act of survival. He endured a storm that would have crushed most people. False accusations, public humiliation, health collapse, and financial loss. Yet, he came through it with dignity intact and a renewed sense of purpose. Today, when he steps on stage, he does so on his own terms, wiser, tougher, and deeply aware of what fame can take away. His story is no longer just about chart records or sold-out tours. It's about resilience, truth, and the courage to rebuild when the world tries to tear you down. Because even after everything, Sir Cliff Richard still stands proof that character and integrity outlast the noise of scandal and the cruelty of rumor.